Good afternoon, everyone. I think the last speaker on the last note gave a very good introduction to my topic, a farmer-based approach to scaling up climate action, rooting it in understanding the needs of farmers. I think that is where one can say that it is farmer-based, because you need to understand what is it that drives them, what is their psychic, what are their aspirations, what are their issues, what is it that they can do by themselves, what is it that they need help from others, how can they drive the agenda, how can they be given the space, how can policy address, and how can science and technology deal with them. But that all comes from the basic point of understanding. And there are different ways of understanding them. What is a bit frustrating from our side is that we see a lot of things happening, research happening. We see a lot of finance going into the sector. We see a lot of information going in that direction, extension, but quite a few times, and significantly so, it tends to miss the point. That's the first point. I think that is an indication that there is not enough understanding. And that enough understanding, lack of it, that comes from different explanations, one of which is the danger that we always make, that we think that farmers are all the same, that their needs are the same, because that affects product design. If the product is designed with a homogeneous typology of a farmer, by default, you're getting it wrong. And don't blame the farmer when it doesn't work. Blame yourself. I think it's important for us to understand that. The second point is that because we are about farmers, we tend to look at them from the lens of farmers. We are looking at farmers, but maybe farming is a small part of them. There are a whole other things around farming, depending on the degree of commercial orientation of the farmer. Maybe the farming part of that individual or that community is small. So when you design products and services, maybe it should not be biased more towards what we want to see. You should be biased towards what the situation is saying. If you go for climate insurance, maybe that is not their main need. Their main need could be something else, but it does not mean that you cannot address both of them. Herein also information for product design. You can go for bundling solutions that enables them insurance to deal with other parts, to ride on those other parts that are more important in their lives. I think it's more about us as we understand farmers and as we try to design services and products that talk to them, because I think that's where I'm missing it. And the other point really is that if it has to be farmer-centered, it has to address large numbers of people, because they are the majority, at least in developing countries, of inhabitants. So it has to have the infrastructure that will enable it to reach out to many. That's the first point, the basic point, but it is talking to addressing a farmer-led approach, because there are large numbers. It has to also address their diversity, because they are not the same. It has to address the point of their limited education and knowledge to deal with what is now and what is coming. It has to deal with their understanding and appreciation. We heard earlier on about how sometimes research, development assistance is not sufficiently appreciating the importance of research. Research is important. So also farmers to understand the importance of climate change and how they are part of it and how they can use different instruments to deal with it, moving them from conscious ignorance to conscious ignorance, to conscious ignorance, so that they can begin to start something about it, to do something about it. So again, that to me is infrastructure. If you don't know what is hitting you and what might hit you sooner or later, and to what extent, and when, and how, your history right from the beginning, and to invest in that appears to be investing in something, but that is essential infrastructure. if you don't have a health facility, if you don't have a school, if you don't have social services, to try and say, let's talk climate smart, I mean, it's a bit too far away from them. I think that is reality. So the point being that when we are talking about climate action, that is farmer-based, it needs really to understand some of the very basic infrastructural stuff that needs to be there before one can begin to talk about the actual subject. Because that actual subject, that knowledge, that information, that understanding, that awareness, that practice, that experience has to flow through an infrastructure. If it's not there, basic roads, basic bridges, basic network infrastructure, we are not talking anything. It should be fragmented, it should be not so coordinated, and it will give us zero or near zero. So sometimes it is not so much about how much we're investing. It is about understanding where to put the investment, where it gives you the best back. I always give a silly example about, I have not been in the Army or in the Air Force before, but I can imagine that if one is trying to look at where to drop a bomb as a jet fighter, they just don't drop it anyway because they're farmers. No? You look at the point where it is going to cause the most damage, as it were. I mean, it's a silly analogy, I know, but I think it illustrates the point that if we don't invest time and money and resources on things that may appear so basic, we are not going anywhere. And it may not be exciting. It might not be exciting, but maybe those things that are not exciting may be the most important. I know researchers, I've been one before, want things that are exciting. But let's maybe redefine the meaning of excitement. It should be one that gives you large numbers, that is transformative, that makes farmers happier. And what best way of measuring the happiness of a farmer than money in the pocket? Less risk, more profits. If it is not addressing that, and I can imagine that a lot of research that we might have done is not resulting in that. So we should really self-assess ourselves as to whether the kind of focus and the kind of orientation that we're going for is really, really helping us. Concluding points, in my view, it is not only about what can we do for farmers. I mean, I think we also need to move away from that paradigm. The farmers themselves, if they don't take it upon themselves to say, what is it that we need? Rather than how do we create an enabling environment for farmers? They should be saying, we demand this enabling environment, rather than waiting for others to do that. It is coming from their realization. It is coming from their institutions. So investing in their institutions to help them articulate, not to wait to respond to NDCs developed by others, but to say, we think our NDCs as farmers are this, than to be mobilized by others. That which you are mobilized for may not necessarily last than that which you mobilize yourself for. And I'm sure I'm making a lot of sense on this. It's my English that may not be very good. But really, it is in the hands of farmers. And sometimes we are not using those hands ourselves to be able to wrestle the thing in our favor. But we're waiting for some other people to do things to us. I mean, a farmer or farmers should be able to say what we consider enabling for us is A, B, C, D. Rather than someone doing research. I mean, they can also do research. Research is not only for researchers. I mean, we are all researchers in our own way. Maybe not as scientifically as other people, but maybe the results are the same. Who knows? We may not necessarily perfect that science, but working together, we are able perhaps to come up with better solutions. The core being that if it has to be farmer-led, let it come from the farmers themselves, and let it join hands with those that seek to support farmers. And finally, let's have a very basic infrastructure through which we are going to reach out to as many farmers as possible, as quickly as possible, and to try and have as the mass that we require. And digital technology should be a key solution. Digital infrastructure, investment in network infrastructure, connectivity might seem high-end, but maybe it's not as high-end anymore That is what we need. That is part of the infrastructure. Thank you.